What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the Debbie Rao channel. We're back with our top 25 series, working our way down. We did Utah. Now we're at Oklahoma State Cowboys. We're talking a little number 24 ranked Cowboys here. Now, before we get into the 24 ranked Cowboys, go over everything: impact players, recruits, notable losses, incoming players, and their schedule. We got to talk about last year. Overall, not a bad year. 10-4, finished pretty well down the stretch of the season, made the Big 12 championship game. And overall, when you're looking at their schedule, really the big oops was at the beginning of the year. And you watch, South Alabama, Iowa State, probably two losses that they wish they could have back, but they turned it around, beat Oklahoma, which is all, Cowboy fans like to hear. They beat Oklahoma before Oklahoma left out to the SEC, played Texas in the Big 12 championship, lost there. And when you're looking at just what they brought to the table, obviously Alan Bowman was there. He's back again, 304, 501 attempts, 3,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. Ollie Gordon became one of the best players in college football last year. That's really where they rode him down the stretch. But overall, pretty good year for Gundy's team. 10-4, positions themselves really well going into this year. They finished 16th overall in the final AP poll. And based on their season, pretty good success based on the first 4 games of the year. Now, when we're flipping over the offense, though, me and Chris are going to be talking about, and Chris is going to kind of dive us in there. They got a lot of guys coming back, and they should be excited about all the veterans coming back littered all over this depth chart.
Yeah, the main one, we always talk about how important trench play is. They have all 5 starters returning this year. At least all 5 of these projected starters had played at least 12 games last year. So this was a really good pass blocking unit. They obviously, if you see on the screen here, their run blocking grade per PFF was not very good, but that doesn't necessarily matter when you have a guy like Ollie Gordon back there. So because they were so good in pass protection, that gave Alan Bowman a chance back there. We talked about Dazon Stribling is going to be a big factor in this offense. He didn't play a whole lot last year, was battling injuries. Brennan Presley stepped up huge for them last year. He was a fantastic player, might have some NFL potential. And Rashad Owens, low-key, was pretty good last year as well. So overall, this offense, when you talk about everything's going to flow through Ollie Gordon as it should, but they've put pieces around Alan Bowman to where there could be an extra dynamic to this offense where I think that they can be pretty good, maybe one of the best in the Big 12 even.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you hit a good point there with Rashad Owens. I mean, 895 yards, 5 touchdowns last year, kind of was that guy. But Deshaun Stribling is a guy. He came over from Washington State a couple years ago, and I was kind of a Washington State truther a couple years ago. So, I've watched him play a lot. And in CFF and fantasy and stuff, Stribling's one of those guys that you're like, oh, man, he can go off. If he's healthy, he only played 4 games last year. If he's healthy, I think it elevates his offense. And I think it puts the pressure off of Ollie Gordon because you can see a lot more quick screens. You can see a lot more slants, a lot of things where it's out quick. It's not a run, but it is kind of a run. Like, it's able to kind of get that ball out quickly into an athlete. And Stribling is that guy. And this offense needs it. I mean, they were top 45 in offense points per game last year, about 29.8, which wasn't, isn't going to do it in the Big 12. That's just not, we know that in terms of what this conference looks like. Yards per game, they were, 430, which was pretty good. I think you hit on the head, though, with their rushing attack. I mean, their run blocking wasn't great. But even then, rush play percentage, they were 117th. They didn't run the ball very much last year. Yards per rush, they were 25, though. They were a top 25 unit there, but rushes per game, they ranked 103rd. And the reason why is because really they had nothing behind Ollie Gordon. We're going to kind of talk about AJ Green, what happened to him recently and all of that looking forward. But this offense has room to grow. And with that consistency coming back on the line, you have to really like that from these guys in this room. Now, notable losses, when you're looking at this, not a lot of guys left that we are really saying notable, right? Leon Johnson had 539 yards and a touchdown, but really, if Stribling's healthy, boom, bounces back. That's not really a huge loss. Blaine Green, again, guys, 102 yards, nothing great there. Jaden Bray, 382 yards and 2 touchdowns. Solid guys, good guys out there to be on your team, but really no losses that you're like really have to recover from in terms of the portal or anything like that.
Yeah, I think we talked about Stribling. I think he comes in and replaces everything that Johnson and Bray gave you. I will say I think there's a little less depth in that wide receiver room, if only because they've lost, bodies. But guys step up. I think a lot of those guys can't get you the 105 yards that Blaine Green gave you last year. So to me, this is a net, even. There's not a whole lot of actual notable in these losses.
No.
Obviously, names that this Oklahoma State fans will recognize because they were playing a lot, but nothing that's super impactful to this offense, in my opinion.
No, the one guy that I still believe in, man, is Taylon Stretton, the wide receiver. He's a redshirt
Mm,
sophomore now. He was big a
me too.
couple years ago. People loved him coming out of his recruiting class. And he's sitting right there beside probably Rashad Owens and that X. Like, if you're looking for some guy that could probably step up there, I know they like Tyke Andrews as well. Like, man, but Stretton, come on, man. I still believe that you have the talent out there. As far as recruits go, so this is really the one thing with Oklahoma State that we don't see a ton of. Ranked overall 63rd in terms of the 247 sports, 56 composite, ranked 2. They really get guys that develop, and then they kind of just go after kind of like the portal and they attack there. The big guy that they got was Trey Griffiths. I mean, when you're looking at him and you're talking about like what he is, 6'3", 205, he fits their profile really well. Wide receiver 45 of the position out there of Keller, Texas. Smith at quarterback, again, probably that, when you're looking at him, you're talking about just a project, 6'4", 195. Going through it, Josh Ford, Rodney Fields, Jaden Allen Hendricks is an interesting one. When you're looking at him, he's an athlete, but, he's probably playing running back. And anytime you get a Oklahoma State guy that's going to be playing running back, he's one to know. At 6'2", 225, he can kind of step in there. And when you talk about what he did in high school, he ran for 2,200 yards and 25 touchdowns as a senior on 232 attempts. And there's kind of a new opening in that running back room. We're going to talk about AJ Green and the transfers, but he looks like he's going to be banged up to start the year and he won't be able to be out there. Maybe a guy like Jaden Allen Hendricks comes in and surprises his coaching staff. I mean, he has the size already. It's not like he's going to have to do that. He's got the production too. So he's an interesting guy to watch. And if you play in any kind of fantasy league, a deep league, that would be a guy to really target there. Caleb Hackelman, Chauncey Johnson, those kind of guys. I mean, big boys that they're going to develop there. But what stood out to you about the recruiting class, or ranked 63rd? Are we comfortable with that? They're going to have to recruit a little bit better moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be true for Big 12 teams, to be honest. I think it's gonna be a little tough to recruit to this conference, but Trey Griffiths on film, I think there's some translatable stuff. He's got a frame that's ready to play, which you can't say about every high school recruit coming into a college program, but 6'3", 205, big body, underrated a little bit after the catch, but to me, this is a guy that if they really get hit with injuries, I think Trey Griffiths can step up and play. You mentioned it, but Jalen Allen Hendricks is a fantastic player. I think this is one of those gems of this class. I think there's a chance they have to rely on him. I know Sesi Vailahi is getting a lot of buzz as that, next guy up, but a lot of things can happen. If Ollie Gordon goes down, it's not like they're giving Ollie Gordon's work to one person. That's not how that's going to play out. So somewhat between Jaden Allen Hendricks or Rodney Fields, I think we could see some of that work go to those two guys. But overall, this class is fine. It's definitely an area they need to improve moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, this coaching staff knows they got to develop. The Gundy's been doing that while he's been at Oklahoma State. I mean, he's never had a top recruiting class in there. Now, what brings it to the front is you have transfers that can come in now. So really, what they've been able to do is kind of target these guys. AJ Green was the big one, and he came over from Arkansas. But he was talented, and I know that they were really relying on him to be their running back too, to really kind of take that usage away from Ollie Gordon a little bit, probably increase their rushing stats and their rushing numbers and their efficiency metrics too, to put AJ Green out there. And when you're watching Gundy in his press conference the other day talking about his injury, which doesn't seem season-ending, but it definitely sounded like November-ish, like it sounded like it's going to be kind of a late kind of injury. Hopefully he can bounce back. It definitely hits this team because the depth is what they really needed to attack at that running back room. And without AJ Green, the guys that we talked about are guys going to have to definitely step up. You have Trent Howland as well. So he's out there. He came from Indiana. Could be possibly one of those guys that maybe we're just kind of not thinking about that could step up for them. Dwayne Lofton, wide receiver out of Virginia Tech. Gavin Freeman is there out of Oklahoma. Tyler Foster, and then Isaiah Glass. It does seem like he's someone that they might be looking at from Arizona State. He's coming in 6'5", 245, big kid there. What stood out to you about the transfers?
Gavin Freeman's an interesting one. He's popped a little bit for Oklahoma. He's not a great receiver, to be completely honest, but I think this is a big special teams help. Oklahoma State has been a good special teams unit for the most part over the course of Mike Gundy's time at Oklahoma State. But Freeman gives you something there if that's where they choose to play him or deploy him. But I also think you can get some decent backup slot snaps from him.
Yeah.
It's a bummer that AJ Green is missing time. A November return ish that's a serious injury. That's 5 months away.
Yeah.
So it's you're hoping that he can come back, be a factor down the stretch, because like you said, I think their whole goal was to run the football a little bit more, control games a little bit better. Maybe they still have that goal. Maybe they're going to patchwork it, like we've kind of alluded to. But to me, losing him is pretty big, considering he was our top key transfer. And then Tyler Foster coming over, I kind of like that one as well. I think he can be an impact player. But overall, this is when we talk about the defense, they went hard on the offense in the transfer portal. Defense, not so much, but I think this is the right way to do it when you have a 97th year quarterback and you're kind of playoffs or bust at this point.
Yeah, let's talk about him. Let's talk about impact players here. Alan Bowman, 7th season of college football last year. And I know that he kind of he solidified that room for them because they definitely needed someone to come in there. I think I even made some Alan Bowman jokes last year. I was like, man, he's there for a long time. He's back for his 7th year. And when you're looking at this, when you're going over all these guys, there are 6 basically super seniors and a redshirt senior in this offense that's probably starting. And Bowman's really got to step up. I'll let you talk about Ollie Gordon and how great he is and all of that. But really, Stribling being there is great, Presley Owens. But, he's got to take care of the football. He's got to make better decisions when you're looking at that. 15 touchdowns, 14 interceptions can't happen because really this defense has got to step up and improve. And you don't want to put this defense out there more than it needs to be. Your offense needs to be efficient. You need to score some points in the Big 12, and really what it's going to come down to is health. And there are negative with AJ Green being gone, because really the Big 12 is just going to be who stays the healthiest. Is it Cam Rising from Utah? Is it these guys out there? And really Bowman's got to kind of right this ship a little bit. You'd like to see his percentage get up there from 60 to probably 65 to 70% if they could. But really that's, to me, he's got to right that ship. Now, he just got to hand it off too. Just hand it off to our guy, Ollie Gordon, and do that, but stop turning the ball over. I think that's the biggest key for Allen.
Yeah, some of their losses, I mean, it's tough to put a loss on one player, but he threw some clunkers out there in a couple of those losses. So I think that's critical. Taking care of the football is the main thing. I mean, to win every game, which you don't have to do necessarily in the current nature of the college football playoff. But I think when you're coming from the Big 12, you have to win the Big 12 at least. So Alan Bowman needs to be a lot better. Like you said, he just needs to turn and hand the ball off to Ollie Gordon. I think that everything has to run through Ollie Gordon. This is a very talented running back. I have my reservations about him as an NFL player, but this is a fantastic college football running back that I think can carry this offense, especially say your offensive line, which struggled in run blocking last year, improves even marginally. I think you're looking at a much more efficient attack. I think they will, incorporate some of those other guys, but that's going to keep Ollie fresh. I want to see him more involved in the passing game. I know he had 50 targets last year, but even more would be good. Getting the ball in your best player's hands is critical. And then this wide receiver core, I think Brennan Presley is a really good player. I think Stribling's a really good player as well. So to me, as long as Alan Bowman doesn't throw the ball to the other team, I think this offense is going to be pretty efficient.
Yeah, 2,000 yards from scrimmage when you're looking at what he was able to do last year with Gordon, 22 touchdowns overall. And then the name that keeps just popping up, right, is Sesi Vilahi. He's that guy. And we didn't put him on the impact players, but Gundy keeps talking about him. And if Gundy's talking about you, that's one of those things that kind of take into fruition of hey, maybe this is a guy that really can step up for them in that room as well. But Ollie's their guy. I think Ollie has a chance, if he repeats what he does, to be a day 2 guy next year. And that's just really moving forward. Now, as far as the defense goes, so when we're diving into the defense, I'm going to give some numbers, and Christian can kind of talk about the players out there. The number one thing they have to improve on, and the one thing that they did not do last year, stopping opponents on third down. Third down conversion, they ranked 97th last year. They just couldn't get off the field. A lot of bend on first and second, and they broke on third down, and teams were able to extend drives, which is number one for me when you're looking at just their defensive metrics. They couldn't get off the field, and you got to get off the field in the Big 12. You have to give your offense opportunities, especially when you have Gordon and these guys on the other side. That was really their big red flag. And in sack percentage, 96 last year. So not getting after quarterback, and in that probably attributed to that third down conversion rate. They have to get off the quarterback this year, and they got to improve the third down defense.
Yeah, they weren't a big sack team. I think they have some players now. We'll talk about it in the transfers, but Obi Ziegbo is coming over from Gannon, Division II transfer, but had some really fantastic production, really good film. People overstate the difference between Division II and Division I. To be completely honest, I think this transition might not be as difficult as many project. I think he can come in and start right away, and maybe get you even better sack production than what you had last year. Nick Martin and Colin Oliver is two of your main linebackers. Colin Oliver is one of those do-it-all players. He flies all over the field. I think he's good when he drops back into coverage. He's a main a contributor to your sack total, so you need him to be able to get to the passer. And then you've got, Corey Black at corners, an intriguing name. I really like what he did last year. Cam Smith coming in as well. I think that this secondary can be, kind of the staple, but like you said, they need to get off the field on third down, which means they need to put teams in more strenuating circumstances, right? The third downs can't be 3rd and 2s because those are a lot easy to convert. So they need to hold up against the run, and they need to get more sack production. So I like what they've done, and they didn't add a whole lot on this side of the ball, but I think they're relying on that development. They're returning a ton of starters. I think experience is huge, is critical. But to me, this is definitely the weaker unit when you look at it just player for player. But this unit can be better than last year.
Yeah, their safeties have a ton of starts, 56 career starts between all of them. And then they have, they have 20 safeties listed on their roster, by the way, on their spring roster. They're loaded at the position. It's all through that out there. It's that 3-3-5, but they definitely have experience back there. Now, when you're talking about notable losses, again, when we say notable, these are good players. Anthony Goodlow, 42 tackles last year, 3 sacks again. Xavier Benson, same thing, 65 tackles, 1.5 sacks. Latu, when you're looking at him, he had, 3 sacks. Fine players, rotational guys, but nothing that stands out is like, oh my gosh, how are we going to recover from this? Because they're able to keep the guys that you talked about. There's really no big notable losses on this defensive side.
Yeah, quite frankly, Latu had a few sacks, but the film's bad, man. He misses a lot of tackles, so this could be a net positive, honestly. So I think Goodlow had some good film last year, but overall, it's the same thing with the offense. There's not a whole lot of notable losses, if only because there weren't that many notably good players on that defense last year to lose and feel like you're missing out on something.
Yeah, 100%. And when you look at the recruits, they really targeted some more recruits here. Again, they love their safeties. Landon Cleveland, 6 foot, 185. He's probably their bigger guy there when you're going through it. Tamarick Johnson could be a guy, 6'3", 205. He's definitely got to put on some weight. He's probably going to get redshirted based on that weight there. Armstrong, again, when you're looking at him, 6'1", 250, bigger kid there. Overall, a solid class. The problem is like how many of these guys are going to get on the field. Jonathan Agumado, I think, is out of McKinney, Texas. 6'2", 220 already. And when you're looking at where he played, you're like, hey, maybe he can get on the field a little bit, that edge guy. Gunnar Wilson is another one. If you Google his name right now, go find him. He looks like an Oklahoma State linebacker. Come on, Oklahoma State fans, go Google him on any recruiting service. You're like, yep, that dude plays for Oklahoma State. But overall, pretty good class. But again, who's going to be out in the field is the biggest question with the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the group where you're hoping you develop them, Jacoby Oliphant is an intriguing one to me. 6'4", 175, super lengthy but super lanky as well. So I'm gonna need to get in that weight program and put a couple pounds on. But I think 3 years down the road, that could be a player that we're talking about as a legit force on that defense. Not a lot of opportunity for most of these guys. I will say I think the edge and defensive linemen could work their way onto the field this year, if only because, like we talked about, we just didn't have a whole lot of production. So I think there's opportunity there, but we know what recruiting is at this point in college football, and it's going to be tough for really any of these guys to see the field.
Yeah, Jacoby Oliphant, just a fun fact about him, his size really does disrupt passes though, because in high school, I think he had over 20 pass blocks or pass breakups. You like that. You like that from your big corner out there, especially going into this new league now with new teams. They're definitely going to be throwing the ball over the place. You need guys like him. As far as transfers go, they're really just 2, right? When you were talking about him here, who do you stands out? I know Kobe, you talked about Obi, Kobe Houghton from UTEP. Where are you at with these 2 guys?
I think they can be player, with this secondary, like we talked about the 3-3-5, I think Hilton's going to get on the field. I
Yeah.
think he's going to be a rotational player. Same thing with Ezigbo. I think that he can be more than that, but we don't know. I mean, he's coming over from Gannon University. That is up in my neck of the woods. I can tell you, not a whole lot of football players are coming out of there. So obviously, the level of competition is going to go up for him. I'm excited to see if he can do it because I think there's a lot of opportunity for both of these guys to get on the field. I think Ezigbo is probably on the field a little quicker.
Yeah, and Xebo's an old guy. This is like, he spent 5 years there. So like when we're talking
Mhm.
about like hey, he's coming there to play this year. That's it. He's going to be in that rotation there. But he's experienced, right? These guys are all experienced that are coming out of there. All right. So when we're looking at just overall impact players, guys that we really like in terms of just, hey, can really set that tone for them. Where are you at with the impact players? How do you feel about them? And is it Colin Alva? Is it Nick Martin? Nick Martin seems to be that guy everybody's kind of pinning as possibly being that Big 12, player, maybe player of the year, but at least Big 12 all defense first team.
Yeah, I mean, I think Martin's stats are inflated, if only because he's got a lot of the mop up tackling duty, and so
Yeah.
his tackle numbers go crazy. Which I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong; he's definitely got to be an impact player for this defense to succeed. Colin Oliver is the linebacker I'm most intrigued by, though. I think because of his versatility, because there's really not a whole lot of weaknesses to his game. I'm curious to see if they up his pass rush percentage because of the success that he found in doing that last year, but overall, I and Corey Black, like I mentioned, I mean, good in coverage last year. I think there were times where he could get a little flat-footed, but you're going to have that. I think all three of these guys can take a step forward, and like we've talked about, experience. These guys are all getting some valuable reps, and I don't think really all three of these players should be on the field almost every snap this year, provided they stay healthy.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me, just diving into this team and this defense, they got to get someone that comes after the football. They got to get pressure, and if they can do that, they're going to be fine. I think that's the number one area of improvement that they need. And if these guys can do that, or when we're looking at some of those other guys we talked about on the defensive end spot, they got to go after the football, and they got to go get there and get off the field. And I think Corey Black is that one guy for me. Will he be able to kind of translate, maybe make some turnovers, get some takeaways? Like those are the areas for the impact players. And when you look at the schedule, their schedule works out pretty well. Now, in true Oklahoma State fashion, they scheduled a very, very good FCS opponent in South Dakota State, who's won 2 straight, I think, championships out there at that level, at the FCS level. That's a big game. And Oklahoma State fans know they've lost some games beginning of the year to some teams they shouldn't have, even last year, right? To South Alabama, those type of things. Arkansas at home, that's a tough one too, right? But then you get Tulsa, and really the big game to me, because when you look at their schedule, Kansas State, yeah, that's going to be the kind of a tough game, but West Virginia, no. BYU, no. Baylor, maybe. Arizona State, not. Probably not. TCU, maybe. Texas Tech. And in Colorado, I would rather play Colorado at the end of the year than the beginning because of their depth issues. Hey, you know what? You saw it happen last year. At the beginning of the year, it's like, oh my gosh, maybe these guys got some dudes. And then they all get hurt. Travis Hunter goes out, and then, okay. Really, it comes down to that Utah game for me. And when you're looking at it, like that is a huge game in the Big 12 in terms of this. Where are you leaning with their schedule? I know they got Arkansas, South Dakota State there. They're at 7.5 was their win total, over under 2. So if we want to talk about that, we can.
Yeah, I think really the toughest games are 4 of the first 5. I think at Tulsa is very winnable. I think home against Arkansas is also very winnable. I think South Dakota State at home is winnable, but I'm not calling those guaranteed wins.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, I think, with that group. I added Kansas State in there because I think that team is going to be pretty efficient offensively. And so if this team can't really figure out the defense in that first month, I think that could be one of those barn burners where, the last team that has the football might win that game. So that one makes me a little bit nervous, especially on the road. But if they can get through those first 5, I think they're hitting the over because even if they come out of that 4-1, maybe they lose to Utah. They come out 4-1. I think there's a chance they can sweep the rest of their schedule. I think the Texas Tech game's a little sneaky hard, sneaky difficult there. But overall, I mean, this is a very favorable schedule, I think, that allows them to have their toughest tests early, kind of rack up some wins down the stretch. And recency bias matters when it comes to playoff berth as well. So I think we could see an over. I'm going to pick the over here.
Well, I'm going to pick the over as well. But really, those first few games, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Bowman. Like, Bowman's got to really set the tone early in those games, not make mistakes, especially versus Arkansas. If he has a very good game, they're going to win that game. Like, if he comes out and does not turn the ball over, it's going to be hard for me to see them losing that game because Arkansas's got some, issues. They got some issues over there, and I think that they can definitely exploit those. But it really comes down to him. Like, how is he going to do here? And then one thing to also know, if you're an Oklahoma State fan or just in the Big 12, you guys are all the same. All your teams are the damn same thing. When I was going through it, like Utah, you guys are all experienced. You got all the guys. Like, and if you want parity in college football, it's the Big 12. It's parity all over the place because really, I could see five different teams trying to win this conference. Like, I really could. Like, it's really one of those things. So really, when you look at the final outlook here, I think the ceiling for them is Big 12 championship and a playoff appearance. I think they could do that if they win a Big 12. I think whoever wins the Big 12 is going to get in the playoff, obviously. But after that, like, I can't see a second team getting in probably unless two teams really outshine themselves, but they're going to kind of cannibalize each other, I believe. And I really think the winner of the Big 12 is going to have 3 losses. Probably. I would really kind of bet my money on that. I know some Utah fans out there think they're going undefeated, but I have a hard time seeing that with the parity in the league. So for Oklahoma State, I think their ceiling is a Big 12 championship. I think that their floor is 8 wins. But I still think they hit their over on their win total.
Yeah, I think they're in good shape. I mean, we kind of know what this is from a long-term outlook. I think, winning the Big 12 should be their goal every year. I do think that this is the year, though. We've talked about how old this team is. Those guys are running out of eligibility. At least we hope so. I think maybe some Oklahoma State fans might wish that Alan Bowman's will get redacted and he has to leave. But no, I think this team's in good shape. I think they're going to be a playoff contender. I think they're going to be a Big 12 championship contender. So I'm excited to see what they do. Hopefully they stay healthy. Hopefully they just give the ball to Ollie Gordon. And I think they're in good shape.
Give the ball to Ollie Gordon, Gundy. That's all you got to do. But I think your point is, a good one. Next year, they're going to be a little bit hurting a little bit with all these depth pieces out there. And recruiting on the NIL is going to be a little difficult in the non-Power 4 conferences out there because just the way the rules are now. So this is their year. Go out there and try to attain that Big 12 championship and go out there with Gundy. Because Gundy might leave at some point. There's a time when Gundy's going to go, and I think maybe in the next few years. But appreciate you guys. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be back with number 23 on our next episode here. As always, comment below. What do you guys think about Oklahoma State and their season coming up?